This is the truth code. If you have ever wondered why the numbers are drawn the way they are, this is the reason. These are the original figures which are morphed into these. The original figures composed of pure geometric figures, the circle and the line. It's the opposites for you Jungians, and the vulvic and phallic for you Freudians. The original images were used in people's myths thousands of years ago. The ancients used numbers and geometric figures in their myths long before people started to use them in mathematics. The ancients' lives were centered around communicating and knowing the spiritual realm. That is the esoteric method. Our culture is concerned about knowing the facts of nature. These are two very different mindsets. This represents the ancient animist religions, which is the substrate and the foundation of our existence. This is our lost heritage, our lost past, which is buried and even hunted. These images are a creation myth, the creation of an individual life, what a person can become. There are concepts attached to each figure. They do not represent numerical value, as do these. This creation myth does have some parallel to our modern creation myth of the Big Bang Theory, the birth of the universe, with the singularity, the Big Bang, I suppose, resulting in the four forces. But primarily, these images tell the story of the stages of a human life, the development of the conscious and the spiritual aspect. The concept attached to the point is everything that exists cannot be distinguished from anything else. That is an irrational statement, but that's what you get when the conscious comes close to the unconscious. This is the stage before the egg and sperm unite, when they are part of the man and woman's body. No distinction yet. The second stage is the stage of the circle. The concept attached to this is oneness. There is an actual duality with the developing infant and the mother's body, and by extension the rest of the universe. But functionally at this stage they are one. There's a correlation and a connection between the geometric figures, the letters of words, and concepts, such as ovum begins with the circle. Words like on and one begin with the circle. This is a common theme that runs throughout this mythic image. Here the baby is born. There are two parallel lines, two parallel lives, the mother, the infant, and they are connected. First by the umbilical, when the placenta drops and the umbilical cord is cut, the baby doesn't know the difference between itself and his mother's body. That still functions as a unit, and that is the concept attached to this image. And the U is two parallel lines connected by a third line, just like this. These kind of connections run throughout this imagery. This is the stage of essential infantile narcissism, where the infant does not know the difference between itself and anything else. It perceives itself as everything. When it needs something, it fusses, and the adults come to make everything better. It doesn't know the difference between itself and the adults. All it knows is it fusses and everything gets better. That's godlike power. This infantile narcissism is difficult for people to give up later in life. This is the theme of sacrifice in religion, sacrificing the essential infantile narcissism, the sense of God, and reorienting to the higher power, which is in fact nature. But mankind will do anything to hold on to its sense of godness and create gods in their own image. And the retention of infantile narcissism sets the stage for almost all psychopathology. The fourth stage is the concepts attached to it are duality and opposition, represented by two parallel lines, the mother and child again, but the mystical connection is gone. This is when the terrible twos arrive. The conscious ego arrives before the age of 2 and enforces itself by saying two things, I and no. It recognizes itself and it says no to the parental image. This starts the formation of boundaries when the parental image answers back, no, I am the greater authority, and you must learn this. So there is a resulting battle between the two, setting the stage for the essential boundaries. And the lack of boundaries, again, sets the stage for psychopathology. To emphasize the concept of opposition, the opposing corners are connected to form the Z form, which morphed into the curvilinear form of the 2 that we know today. This is how these things happen. The fifth stage of threeness represents temporality and materiality. These are the long years of childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood when we must attend to the demands of the material, physical world. Concepts attached to this are incompleteness and imperfection because, alas, those are the characteristics of our temporal world. This also probably corresponds to Jung's primary, secondary, and tertiary conscious functions. Threeness is the characteristic of this mythic image. Time has past, present, and future. Space has the X, Y, Z coordinate, 3 for each. And the word matter has an M, T, T, and E, all forms of the 3. The sixth stage is the development of the spiritual axis. The spiritual axis is the vertical, and the material axis is the horizontal. Here you're lacking the complete spiritual because you're attending to the material side of things. At this stage of development, the spiritual axis becomes complete. At a certain age and development and experience, you develop an awareness of, a personal awareness of the spiritual aspect. And the concepts attached here are completeness and perfection as opposed to incompleteness and imperfection. The seventh stage is manhood and womanhood. This is the development of matter and spirit, becoming whole of sorts. Here you have the quaternity, fourness, and again the circle referring to oneness is fiveness. This is the male, and this is the easily recognized image of woman and Venus. This is the original image for man and Mars, which was morphed into this by the developing patriarchal culture. This has profound implications. This is centric and balanced. This represents the ancient mindset that these figures are all about, which has been characterized as Eastern, also demeaned as primitive, animist, paganism. This is eccentric, favoring the upper right, which is an arrow image, and a solar image. This is a one-sided patriarchal attitude. And you can see where we get our number 5 from. Right there, which is another indication of the one-sided attitude favoring the patriarchy and not incorporating the opposite feminine aspect. Again, these are concepts. This is 4-ness and 1-ness making 5-ness, not referring to numerical value. The 8th phase, the number 6, the figure 6, is based on the Magen David or sign of David, the two interlocking, overlapping triangles, upward pointing male, downward pointing female, thank you, Dan Brown, in a position of union. This is why we put the ring on the 3rd finger over, 1, 2, 3, signifying the imperfect, incomplete aspect of the male and female coming together in union, forming a circular image. It's easy to see the connection between the stage of becoming a man and a woman and then uniting in marriage. That's the physical aspect. The psychological aspect of this stage has to represent the union of the conscious and the unconscious in the visionary experience. We all have this experience in our daily lives with dreams and visions and through the creative process, but this can also be induced through ritual. And this is what the ancient animist religions did. They held ceremonies to do just that by various means, including taking drugs. This is a dangerous thing to do because it can result in psychosis and schizophrenia. It can result in very helpful material coming out of the unconscious, but it is a dangerous thing to do. And the caveats were well deserved, but it turned out to be outright prohibition, which ended up the power structure denying people their human ability and human right to communicate with the spirit realm. That's a projection of communication with the unconscious, a very real experience that can be quite helpful, but yes, it is dangerous. The 9th stage is 7-ness. There you have the triangle of temporality and the equilateral cross of the spiritual aspect. This is the male, again, the upward pointing. This is the female, again, the downward pointing, which to me is an accurate depiction of the male that it tends to be oriented to the material, and the female, which really tends to be more oriented to the spiritual. And you can see where we get the drawing of the number 7 with the little hash mark in it. The triangle referring to the physical is replaced by one horizontal line, which still refers to the physical. And there's the little hash mark, which is indicative of this original figure, which has been changed through time. And again, the use of this, like the number 5, favoring the male patriarchal side of things. The 10th phase of 8-ness is represented by these two figures, which represents one with the universe or one in the universe. I think that's what this is saying. And then one with the universe here. The one is the individual, the smaller circle, having attained oneness or wholeness, and then being able to relate consciously to the universe, which is the larger circle. And the concept here is sagacity. This is the age in some myth traditions where at a certain age you get to wander off into the universe and meditate. Having gone through all of this development, reaching a stage of mastery, And you get to go off to be the sage in the forest. The last stage in development, the 11th, and the concept here is nineness. You have fourness, and oneness. That's nineness. This is the prophet. This is the feathered serpent. This is the crown. When you've gone through all of the previous development, you earn the right to return to the people and tell them about it. And the content of what you say is, if it is archetypal, then it is very worthwhile. If you make claims and not really attaining this position, then it's going to have personal content, and you're going to end up trying to fool yourself and other people. But if you do the true path, you get to this point, then you become a prophet, and the content of what she says comes from the spirit realm, the unconscious, close to the nature of nature, and hopefully the truth. The second phase of conception is the Ouroboros. Again, a circle for the beginning of the word. This is the serpent, and this is the feathered serpent. This is the dragon. This is the phase that a person can achieve if they travel the true path. Of course, people don't, but they claim to. And then they try to rule with their crowns on over people. In their fancy feathered costumes, they claim to know the spiritual. They claim to know what the gods say, when all they want is to establish their authority to rule over people. The Christ said his kingdom was not of this earth. The people that are overtaken by the power motive, that's exactly what they do. They claim the spiritual and try to rule over people. This is the truth code. This is the story of our rightful heritage and our ability, which has been told to us that does not exist or is evil and should be avoided. And you can get to eternal life after death if you just do what the power-mongering priests tell you what to do, when in fact it is our ability, our heritage, and our right to communicate with the spirit realm, which is a projection of the communication between the conscious and the unconscious. A very real and very valuable experience, which has been lost to us in favor of power-mongering materiality. I hope you enjoyed this video.